Hi, everybody. I'm Pierre Bouvard, Chief Insights Officer here at the Audio Active Group at Cumulus Media in Westwood One. And what is the very latest on the state of the American commute to work, both among folks that are in the marketing and advertising business and among average Americans? Over the last 5 or 6 years or so, every 6 months, we've conducted two studies examining the state of the great American commute. Every 6 months, we survey folks that work in marketing and advertising and simultaneously conduct a separate study of average Americans to see what is going on with their commuting patterns. Now, to do this, we turn to the gold standard of advertiser agency sentiment, which is a company called, surprisingly enough, Advertiser Perceptions. And they've been running this study every 6 months since 2022 on how frequently folks that are spending money, both either as a brand or at a media agency, are coming into work. This study just conducted in April, this past April, of 301 marketers and media agencies. And then simultaneously, Quantilope conducted a study of 1,601 average Americans, also in April, asking them about the state of their commute. So here are 6 key findings from this very latest data. First of all, we are seeing a record high for the proportion of media agencies and marketers that are commuting most or all days, 64%. That's the highest we've seen since the study began in 2022. 28% in addition say they're commuting some days, and you'll see the proportion of marketers and media agencies working from home full-time has plummeted. For average Americans, 85% say they're commuting to work either most days or some days, a little bit less than marketers overall. And since AM/FM is the soundtrack of the American worker, it is the ideal media platform for advertisers to reach working Americans. In the car, AM/FM's share of ad-supported audio is a stunningly dominant 83 share. That's an 83 share in car of all ad-supported audio. That's according to the just released Q1, Edison share of ear study that was released for Q1 2026. When it comes to the number of days folks are going to work outside of the home, everyday Americans slightly outpace marketers, 4.7 days versus 4.4. And not surprisingly, the day of the week with the least amount of going into the office is Friday, both among average Americans and marketers and media agencies. So let's take a look at the advertiser perceptions data for the marketers and the media agencies. So what proportions say they are commuting to work most or all days? Well, back in 2022, when we were still in the throes of the coronavirus, only 22% of media agencies and marketers say they were commuting to work most or all days. And since then, it has steadily grown. And in the most recent reading in April 26, we see 64% are commuting most or all days. And that is an all-time high. Now, what about those that say they're commuting to work some days? That's actually at the lowest point at 28% since the studies began in April of 2022. And then the biggest drop comes from those that say they are only working from home. That was a sizable 37% in April of 22, and now we're in the single digits at about 7%. And that's pretty much what the average is for all Americans who work full-time remote. So a lot of shifting here and a lot of back to work for marketers and media agencies. Here is the view of average Americans. Now, when this study started in April of 2020, all the way to the left of your screen, that was right at the heart of the coronavirus, and not surprisingly, half of Americans were working from home. But that quickly recovered by 2021, and ever since then, it's been about 85-15 for those that are commuting to work, for average Americans, and those that are working at home. The early series in this study were conducted by Nielsen, and later on, Quantilope took over the chore of doing the twice-a-year survey of average Americans. So when we add up the some days and most or all days, we can see 92% of marketers and media agencies commuting for work, to work a little bit more than average Americans. And when you track them over time, prior to 2024, there were more average Americans that were going back to work than folks in the marketing and media agency world. But since spring of 2024, the lines kind of met. And interestingly, and most recently, you had a little bit more folks in the advertising world going to work some or all days versus average Americans. So let's just clock up now average number of days per week folks are commuting. Average Americans have a little bit of an advantage, 4.7 days versus 4.4 for marketers and media agencies. Here is the view from advertiser perceptions of what's been happening with advertisers and agencies. You can see those that were only coming in 1 or 2 days has collapsed. The 3 or 4 days has been pretty stable, but all of the growth for marketers and media agencies has been in the 5 days a week, where you have about half that are coming in. When you put side by side marketers and media agencies in gray, average Americans in blue, you can see the reason why there's a couple more days per week, or a little bit more days per week, is that average Americans, some of them tend to work 6 or 7 days a week, and that's how they get a little bit more of an average. And in terms of which day of the week folks are showing up to work, you can see Monday through Thursday, pretty consistent between the marketers and media agencies in gray from the advertiser perception study, and average Americans from the Quantilope study in dark blue. And you can see on the weekends, more likely to have Americans working on the weekends versus folks in advertising. So let's take a look at the current state of radio listening in car, and what proportion of total radio listening is occurring in car. Well, as of the very latest share of ear, Q1 2026 Edison study, the long-running share of ear study, surveys 4,000 Americans on an annual basis. They publish every quarter. Study's been running for 11 years. You can see the AM/FM share of ad-supported audio in car is a astounding 83. Everything else is in the mid to low single digits. And by the way, AM/FM has been in the 80s for share of ear in car for the last 11 years. Now, we do notice when you look at share of AM/FM radio listening occurring in the car, there was an impact from the pandemic. It showed up in 2021, 2022, but by the time 23 came around, there was a sharp snapback. We're back to getting about half of all time spent with radio occurring in the car. And we're right now at that 50% mark, which radio experienced pre-pandemic. So half of all tuning minutes for AM/FM radio occurring in the car. And obviously, this is why radio is such a wonderful medium to reach consumers on the path to purchase. So 6 key findings, the highest showing yet for marketers and media agencies at 64%, saying they're showing up at work, at the office, most or all days. That's the all-time high since we began running these studies in 2022. 28% say they're commuting some days. On the average American stand, it's 85% that are commuting to work most days, a little bit less than the marketers and the media agencies. And as we just saw from the Edison data, AM/FM radio is the soundtrack of the American workers. So an ideal platform for marketers and media agencies. And this share of ear in car from Edison has been just consistently dominant, even with the most recent reading from the Q1 26 share of ear study. Because average Americans are working a little bit more on the weekends than people in the ad biz, you get a couple more ticks on the number of days per week. But very consistent during the week, and there is a little bit less showing up at work on Friday. The Audio Active Group here at Cumulus Media in Westwood One is a full-service national brand advisory. We help clients with measurement, whether that's sales effect, search and site attribution, creative testing, or brand lift. Each and every week, we publish a new audio insight. You can find it at our blog at cumulusmedia.com or westwood1.com. And when you're there, you can sign up to get the weekly audio case study sent directly to your email box. Thanks so much for the opportunity to take you through the very latest on the state of the great American commute among average Americans and folks in the ad business. Thanks so much.